everybody. Thank you for coming to our Traffic Council meeting for January 30th. We're just going to begin with introductions. My name is David Kozis. I'm the Traffic Council Chair, the Transportation Coordinator from the Department of Public Works. Other members of Traffic Council with us are Captain Devine from the Traffic Bureau, Mitch Fishman, our citizen representative, Margot Spiller, our alternate citizen rep. We have Councillor Downs from Ward 5, and I haven't seen Adrian yet. I do see Adrian now. So Adrian Ayala, our traffic engineer, and Danielle Delaney is our clerk. I also so far see Councillor Getz from Ward 5. I think that's all the councillors that I see at this moment. All right, so we'll begin with our first item of the evening. Okay. So our first item is TC 5524. It's Maura Albano from 211-213 Derby Street, requesting a stop sign at the end of Sheridan Street as it intersects with Derby Street northbound. Note that this is a request. This is not a request for a stop sign on Derby Street itself, only on Sheridan Street. So we're going to do a quick presentation and then we can open it up for any public comments before we have a traffic council discussion and vote. So this is the location in the red rectangle at the end of Sheridan Street at Derby Street. Here's a view, a photo looking north toward Derby Street. So this is a T intersection, and we often, pretty much at every traffic council meeting, we have a request to add a new stop sign at a T intersection. And there's no federal guidance really that we would look to when it comes to whether or not to add a stop sign at a T intersection. It's an applied stop. You're supposed to be stopping at these T intersections. It's not necessary to add a stop sign there, but we could. And almost every time that it comes to traffic council, we do approve the stop sign at these T intersections. We do think that there's a small safety benefit. It clarifies the right of way. And especially if there's a crosswalk or if it's near a school, in this case, it is near the Franklin School. So our recommendation is to approve the stop sign at that location. And we have language tonight to allow us to vote to approve it. We would wait 20 days. If there's no appeal to this vote within 20 days, then the stop sign could be installed after February 19th. So that's the presentation I have for this item. And now I would call on anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item. If you could raise your hand and we can call on you. And I do see one person. Kelsey, if you could just unmute yourself, say your full name and your address, please.
Sure thing. Hi, Kelsey Scheidemantel here from 209 Derby Street. Already heard you saying that it's likely already be approved. Just wanted to add additional public commentary as a mother of 3 living within a few hundred feet of the proposed stop sign and walking to Franklin and such. I do think it's an important component within the neighborhood, especially so close to the public school, but I'm even more concerned as construction begins at the Franklin School that will just have an increased amount of traffic. Just hearing the horns that go day in and day out of cars kind of going down Derby, people trying to quickly turn left or right onto Derby from Sheridan. I think this would certainly help improve, as you mentioned, the right of way and just really make that clear. So really just wanted to give my public comment here, but appreciate this forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment. Maura and Stephen Albano, you can unmute, and you are 211-213 Derby Street, right?
Yes, correct. So hearing that it's moving forward to being approved, I really appreciate this very, very much. I wrote a big spiel, but I think I'm just going to leave it be because I'm hoping that this does turn out to be a positive. And
Thank you very, yeah. And thanks so much for docketing this. Anyone else from the public wish to speak? If not, everyone can take their hands down. Thank you. And anyone from the traffic council or any city councilor have any comments at this time? All right. Seeing none, we have language that was sent out previously to allow us to vote on this item. Would be the same as the language that we see on page 9 to approve the stop sign, and I will make a motion to approve. Any last comments? Okay, Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
I'm sorry,
Aye.
we need to say what this is, right? This is TPR 965.
correct.
Okay,
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
Counselor Devine, Counselor Downs. Counselor Downs? Oh, okay, Captain Devine.
The counselor Devine says aye, so.
Okay, that's approved 4-0. Counselor Downs not voting.
I think that she did vote.
I voted.
Okay, I didn't hear you. Apologies.
Sorry.
Approved
So
5-0,
that's fine.
TPR 965.
Okay, and like I said, we just need to wait until after February 19th to see if there's any appeal on this item. I don't expect one, but after February 19th, we should be able to install the sign. And we're going to move right on to the next item, which is TC 125. David Kozis, Traffic Council Chair, requesting to add a stop sign at the T intersection of Prairie Avenue at Auburndale Avenue. Note that this item does not request stop signs on Auburndale Avenue itself, only on Prairie Avenue. And I should note that this actually is not a T intersection. That was a little bit of a mistake. It's a regular four-legged intersection. And here is the location of Auburndale. Oh, okay, so this title is wrong. This is Auburndale Avenue at Prairie Avenue. This title is correct. So here's a photo looking from Prairie Avenue south toward Auburndale Avenue, and then from the other direction looking toward the north. All right, so in this case, it's not a T intersection. We do have guidance from the MUTCD, Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices. The important thing here is that if we have an intersection of a less important road with a main road, where the right-of-way rule might not be expected to be complied with, then it is allowable to be adding a stop sign at the minor roads. And that is what we are proposing here, to add the stop sign on Prairie Avenue in both directions. Here's one direction and then the other one. So that is our recommendation, to add the stop signs on Prairie Avenue at Auburndale Avenue in the northbound and in the southbound direction. And I'll pause here to see if there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item. Okay, I don't see any. But I have noticed that we are joined by Councilor Laredo and Councilor Grossman from Ward 7 and Councilor Bixby from Ward 6. I think that's it. So with no public comments, I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve this item. This would be TPR 966, to add the stop signs on Prairie Avenue in the northbound and southbound direction. Any last comments? Oh, Mitch.
Yeah, I'm not against this, but I just wondered, I noticed that on the opposite side where it intersects with the other continuing street. Which is oh yeah, so there's no stop sign on the other side, right?
Right.
Is there a reason why, is that a dead end? Is that the reason or?
Do you mean, so
I'm
there's
just-
no stop signs on Auburndale Avenue. We're proposing to add stop signs on Prairie in both directions,
Oh,
northbound and southbound.
in both directions,
Yes,
the other side of the street and this side, the
yes,
bottom
yeah,
side, right? Okay, I understand.
yeah. So like, if you take a look at the final slide, this is the motion that I made, that I will make, is to add 2 stop signs in the northbound direction and in the southbound direction.
Terrific.
Okay, and that's TPR 966. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Captain Devine.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 5-0, TPR 966.
Thank you. Same as the last one. We just need to wait until after February 19th before the signs could be installed. And our next item is also for a stop sign. This is TC 225. David Kosis, Traffic Council Chair, requesting to add a stop sign on Owatonna Street at Chask Avenue in the northbound direction and on Bencliff Circle at Chask Avenue in the southbound direction to clarify right of way. And, by the way, both of these, we do hear from residents who live on these streets and, they email us asking for stop signs. So that's one of the main reasons that these get docketed so regularly. We take a look at it, and if we think that a stop sign should be installed, then we do docket them. And I'm not 100% sure how you pronounce this name, if it's Chask Avenue or Chasky Avenue, but I guess I'll just say Chask Avenue. Okay, here's the location right here, Chask Avenue at Bencliff Circle and Owatonna Street. Here's a photo looking north toward Chask Avenue and then looking south from Bencliff Circle. So it's the same slide that we had in the last item, where we have a less important roadway intersecting with a more important roadway. That's where stop signs, in this case, would be allowable. So our recommendation again here is to add the stop sign in both locations. Here's Owatonna Street, and then also Bencliff Circle. So that's our recommendation, to approve these 2 stop signs. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item, if you could raise your hand, and we'll call you. Okay, I don't see any. So I will make the motion here to approve this item. This would be TPR 967 to approve these 2 stop signs. Mitch.
Again, just a clarification. So did you get any calls, emails, or other communication from anybody in this neighborhood?
Yes, this was one of our items that came in through our 311 system and routed to our department. So that's how we first heard about it. We took a look at it in our division and then docketed this item.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, so a motion was made. Can you call the roll, please, Danielle?
Yes. Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Captain Devine.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 5-0, TPR 967.
All right, moving right along. So again, we need to just wait till after February 19th. And then our next item is TC 325. This is Councilor Mickley and Ned Codd, Director of Transportation and DPW, requesting to reevaluate and extend the existing Walnut Street safety zone to begin south of Mill Street. This will help encourage slower driver speeds through the Walnut Street roadway curve near Mill and Hull Streets. So this is the location that this is the safety zone that already exists on Walnut Street, shown in blue. Safety zones in Massachusetts, that's the only time that a municipality would be able to create a speed limit within our jurisdiction without the approval of MassDOT. So we could create safety zones in Newton in certain areas of the city. It's not to be in place of a school zone. There's different characteristics that we should be looking toward to follow. Mainly, it needs to be in an area with vulnerable road users. In this case, it's right next to a high school, which is one of the items specifically listed. We do have vulnerable road users crossing Walnut Street in this vicinity. So we already approved a safety zone in this, in this area of Walnut Street between Austin Street and Hull Street. This was one of 16 safety zones that have already been approved in Newton. And so this item looks to slightly extend this safety zone. You can see right now the sign is posted at Hull Street, consistent with the traffic council vote when it was approved. And now we're looking to extend it just a little bit further to the south. You see this little extension further down Walnut Street near the curve. And that's because we do know that students cross, Walnut Street through this vicinity. There's the curve. There was interest in just extending it and basically relocating the sign further to the south. So that is our recommendation to approve this slight extension. It's about a 250-foot extension south of Mill Street. And so that is our recommendation. And I now will open it up to the public. Jane Hanser, if you can unmute and just say your address, please. Hi, Jane. And you still need to unmute.
There, okay, now, thank you. I definitely support moving the safety zone south on Walnut Street. However, I would like to add a caveat to that. I'm wondering if we cannot also keep the existing sign that is slightly north of Hull Street. It's at the home at 505 between Hull Street and Tiger Drive. And the reason is because I think we have kind of two sets of things going on. You have a winding downhill of Walnut Street that it goes up and down, it winds this way and continues to wind, approaching Mill Street, and it's at Mill Street where a lot of people are already crossing there. You've got a bus stop there. People are crossing to get to the tennis courts at up on Hull, and so I think we really need to have that safety zone sign up there to tell people to slow down before they reach Mill, before they reach Hull. And then I think that there's another thing going on once the road passes, it passes Hull and it levels out, and then you've got that flat area before Tiger Drive. So I think two separate signs would address two different groups of people who are utilizing pedestrians who are crossing. I don't know if that's possible, but I'd like you to consider that. We used to have, there used to be a policeman who would wait on Walnut Street northbound before Mill in the car there. And I think he was trying to get, I don't know if he was trying to get pedestrians or cars that were driving quickly because of that downhill in the curb. And we really need to have something regulatory. We need to have that safety zone begin further up the hill in order to slow down those cars further on, and there, and I think that because you also have a lot of cars on Hull, on Mill, that are going to turn right onto Walnut Street, you need to have that regulatory safety zone sign there too, because
All
there's
right.
many cars from Mill that will not see that sign. I think this is a really important thing that's going to address the many types of pedestrians who are crossing there. We know there's no crosswalk, but you can't go all the way up to Dexter and all the way back down just to go to the tennis courts.
So thank you, Jane. I would say that at Traffic Council, what we're responsible for doing is voting on this specific language. We do have, as you know, we have a transportation superintendent who's very good. She's been here, Nina's been here for, I don't even know,
Yes.
like 28 years or 30 years or something. And she is really good at determining exactly where the signs could be posted, right? We have so many signs. If you drive up or bike up or walk up Walnut Street, there are so many signs
I
in
agree.
that vicinity. We have safety zone signs, we have bus stop signs, we have crosswalk signs, we have no
You have
left
bike
turn
lane
signs, we have
signs.
bike lane signs, we have no left turn onto Tiger Drive signs, at least 2 or 3 of them. We have no left turns into, we have just a ton of signs. So I think we're going to leave it up to Nina to decide exactly where the signs go, but it's the role of Traffic Council to vote to extend the safety zone. And so that's what we would be doing here.
And I'm fine with that, and I do understand that. I just sort of wanted to articulate that, and I do support moving that safety zone sign to include that downhill. It's important to get regulatory so the police can enforce that speed limit.
Right. And especially when the students are crossing right there. So
Right.
thank you very much. Jeremy, hi Jeremy, if you can unmute and remind us your address, please.
Hi, Jeremy Freudberg, 102 Clark Street, former member of Traffic Council. I just wanted to say that I support this change, and I actually made a very similar suggestion at a Traffic Council meeting 3.5 years ago when the safety zone was first proposed. So I am glad that this suggestion from 2021 is finally being taken up in 2025. And I'll also say that I do agree with Jane Hanser about effective signage and just perhaps having some redundant signs within the safety zone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Danny Goldring.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for so I am at the actual corner house at 11 Hull Street, which is the corner of Walnut and Hull Street. So I'm in full support of extending the safety zone. I just again wanted to add, like Jane added, is that I see when we moved in here 3 years ago, the amount of kids crossing the streets just from Mill Street, just cross. I mean, we don't have a crosswalk. I think we should, but that's another thing. So I mean, there's tons of kids, and in the last probably 3 months, I've seen 2 accidents on this corner. One just a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago or something like that. So cars are flying down the street, and I'm full support. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to have a safety zone and frankly a crosswalk, and that's the kids crossing the street. And number 2, there's a disabled home at that corner across the street from me as well. There are disabled people also walking in the street. I think we have to address this. It's an accident waiting to happen. I think someone's going to get killed, unfortunately, before we actually do something. But this is a great step in the right direction. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that comment. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? Counselor Mickley, I didn't see you before.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for taking up this item. I just want to echo the support from Jane and Donnie. Completely agree with it. This is a very dangerous part of Walnut Street. Basically 7 days a week, 5 days a week, high school kids on Saturdays, members of the Jewish community walking to and from synagogue. On Sundays, all sorts of people walking to the tennis courts. And the intersection of Mill Street where cars come speeding down. Just a few months ago, there was a car clocked going 80 miles per hour down Mill Street. Anything we can do to ensure that there is safety around this area, I think is important. I just want to recognize and thank Donnie and his wife Tova for the relentless advocacy for the safety zone, given their unique perspective at that corner. I really appreciate them raising this issue and making it a priority here tonight, as well as Jane for being a partner and pushing this forward, as well as Ned Codd, who's been great in helping us navigate this process, and Isaac, who went with us and no longer works for the city, but made a site visit to look at the dangers of this particular spot. And as Donnie said, I think there's probably even more we could do, but I think this is a great first step to extend the safety zone. One thing I want to note just on the graph, it looked like the coloring didn't extend all the way down to Mill Street and beyond. And maybe that's just how the graph looks tonight, but I think the proposal, just want to make sure that's clear of how far the safety zone is extending and that we're aligned with that.
Right, it would be extending 250 feet south of Mill Street.
Yep, okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Mickley. Any other comments? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'm happy to make that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion from Counselor Downs to approve the language of TPR 968 to extend the safety zone to a point 250 feet south of Mill Street. Any last comments?
As the person who initially proposed this safety zone, I'm delighted to see it extended a little, and hopefully our police department will help reminding people that this is a speed limit to be observed.
Thank you, Counselor Downs. Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Captain Devine.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 5-0 TPR 968.
Thank you. And we'll move to our next item of the evening, which is CC 3824. This is Counselor Baker requesting to restrict an additional 80 feet of parking on the south side of Suffolk Road, east of the roadway curve near Kingsbury Road. This docket aims to add to the previously approved parking restriction in January 2023 to better facilitate safe maneuvering for emergency vehicles. So this is the location of Suffolk Road that we'll be talking about, near Kingsbury Road. So this slide shows a traffic council action that was taken 2 years ago in January 2023, where we voted to restrict parking along these two parts shown in red on Suffolk Road, prohibiting parking on the south side and along the north side, and then a 2-hour parking limit in the areas shown in green. So this is simply a request to extend that no parking zone on the south side a little bit further toward the east, only 20 feet further. And so you could see right now, the no parking zone ends right here. You can see the no parking with the arrow, and then 2-hour parking begins sort of around this curve. And it creates poor sight lines. Vehicles can't see that there's sometimes parked vehicles along this curve, and they're forced around into the opposite lane to go around. So this item, it really just removes about, I would say, 2 parking spaces by moving this no parking sign down to the next utility pole, right? So the new sign would just be no parking on that utility pole, and then the next utility pole would have the end of the no parking zone and the beginning of the 2-hour zone further to the east. So our recommendation is to approve this item, and this is just the specific language in our traffic and parking regulations that we would be voting to remove and then to add back in. And I guess, I mean, it's just a little change. You can see that we're changing from a no parking 160 feet, and then the 2-hour limit begins 260 feet east of Kingsbury. That just gets removed, and then 240 feet is added in its place, is all we're doing. Okay, so anyone from the public wish to speak on this? Okay, I don't see anyone. Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, good. We have a motion from Councilor Downs to approve the language of TPR 969 shown on slides 38 and 39. Any last comments? Okay, Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
and Captain Devine.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 5-0, TPR 969.
Okay, good. So our next item is TC 2524. It's Karen Wenger, 256 Ward Street, requesting implementation of a no turn on red signs, implementation of no turn on red signs at the intersection of Ward Street, Waverly Avenue, and Stewart Road in all approaches. So we'll go through the presentation and then we'll open it up for public comment and go from there. This is the location that we'll be talking about. This is where Waverly Avenue comes down from the north, Stewart Road comes down traveling, toward the east, and then you have Ward Street coming from the east, and then there's a traffic signal here, and then continuing onto Ward Street. So we're going to look at this, since this was docketed for all approaches, we're going to go one by one. So a right turn on red from Stewart Road onto Ward Street is the first one that we'll be talking about. So this is a view of Stewart Road looking eastbound at Waverly. So here's Stewart Road, Waverly's over to your left, and then Ward Street is in the distance and to your right also. We already have a no turn on red sign posted. You can see it there. So it's already prohibited in this direction, right? You know that the sight lines are pretty poor. When you get up to the signal, you can't see very far up Waverly Avenue. And actually this no turn on red sign, it's already posted. It's already included in our traffic and parking regulations. There's nothing that Traffic Council would need to do to change anything for this approach, okay? The next approach is Waverly Avenue, coming down Waverly Avenue and then turning right onto Stewart Road. So in this case, here's a view. There already is, you can barely see, but there is a no turn on red sign already posted right there on this utility pole. So you cannot turn right from Waverly onto Stewart Road. But even though the sign's posted, it's not actually included in our official regulations. It's not listed in our traffic and parking regulations. So we would need to either remove the sign or vote to add that no turn on red into our traffic and parking regulations as part of this item. Okay. Our next approach, we're going to talk about Ward Street westbound, turning right onto Waverly Avenue. Okay. So here's a view, Ward Street. Waverly Avenue is to your right. Stewart Road is straight ahead. And so right turn on red is allowed right now. There's no sign that prohibits it. There's nothing listed in our regulations that prohibit it. The sight lines are very good though, not obstructed. If we do want to add the no turn on red sign in this direction, we would need to vote to add the no turn on red restriction into our TPR and add the sign. All right, now we want to talk about Ward Street eastbound, continuing onto Ward Street, a right turn from Ward Street onto Ward Street. Here's a view looking eastbound. So we have the stop bar, we have the signal, we have a driveway right here. We have a sign that says right turn on red after stop. So vehicles are allowed to come up here on a red. After they stop, they can continue right now onto Ward Street. I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide. I just wanted to show an example of potential conflicts. So let's say that you're the red car driving down Waverly Avenue. You come down, you stop at the signal, and then when it turns green, if you're turning left, you just continue and make that movement, okay? Or if you're the green car coming down Stewart, same thing. You're coming down Stewart, the signal's red, you wait for it to turn green, and then once it turns green, you can continue down Ward Street. But then if you're the yellow car, you're coming up Ward Street, you come up here. If it's green, you just continue if you're going down Ward Street. Or if it's red, you just stop, you pay attention to the sign. It says stop on red, and then continue. So there is a potential that a vehicle that's continuing through the red light would be conflicting with the green car, let's say, that's continuing through the green light. So the green light here and the red light here, there might be a conflict. That's what this slide is trying to show. We did look for guidance on this in terms of when is it recommended to add a no turn on red sign. And so we found that it's recommended at intersections that are skewed if the angle is less than 75 degrees or if it's greater than 105 degrees, that the federal guidance from Federal Highway recommends to add a no turn on red sign. And in this case, 105 degree angle, right? The maximum angle would be basically turning, basically into this house, right? That's 105 degree angle. In this case, the turn is greater than 105 degrees. In fact, it's 145 degrees we calculated. So that's a 145 degree turn where the recommendation is to add a no turn on red sign if the angle is greater than 105 degrees. So in order to post the sign here, the no turn on red, Traffic Council would need to vote to add, the no turn on red sign into our traffic and parking regulations and then swap out the sign that's there for a no turn on red sign. We also just found, this just came out last month from the Mineta Transportation Institute. They just finished up a study, and this is, the bottom line is that there is growing interest across the country to prohibit right turn on reds in the name of pedestrian and bicycle safety, right? This is something that, since 1980, states across the country, right, have been able to allow right turn on reds unless they're specifically prohibited as a way to save energy. But more recently, there's more and more concern about pedestrian and bicycle safety, and adding no turn on red signs, according to this study, helps improve pedestrian and bicycle safety, prevent collisions and fatalities. So just a small improvement in emissions, according to this study. So we also wanted to look at what would happen, what could happen on this approach if we swap out that sign and add a no turn on red prohibition. We're concerned about what would happen to this intersection. This is Grant Avenue coming in, and this is, the signal up ahead. So the concern is that there's a lot of cars that come down Waverly, take the right onto Ward Street, and then take this left right there. But if there's a longer queue waiting for this signal, it could block the cars that are trying to turn off, from Ward Street onto Grant, or from Grant onto Ward Street even. So we started to think about that. We know that it's 230 feet. There about 10 to 12 cars could fit before you get into the intersection of Grant Avenue. Also important to note that this is really, Ward Street is one lane until you get pretty close to the intersection itself where it widens out, right? So if you have, let's say, one or two cars, most cars are coming to this light and turning left onto Waverly, right? So if you have, let's say, one or two cars waiting to turn left, then if the third car is trying to continue through onto Ward Street, usually they'd be able to sort of squeeze over, right? And sort of get into this lane and be able to make that turn onto Ward Street. But if there's three cars, then there's no way for a vehicle to even get into the right lane to make the right turn on red. So if we do, I'm not sure how this is all going to play out, but if we do, if Traffic Council does vote to restrict the turning movement and the no turn on red down at the intersection, we could think about adding a do not block the box into this intersection right here, or even extending the green time at the signal for Ward Street, if that would help. So that is, that's what I have. We have I guess the recommendation for this item is to hear from the public and determine in which approaches the no turn on red prohibitions should be approved through Traffic Council. We don't need to vote, like I said before, for Stewart and Waverly. For the other three, we could vote to approve any or all three of these. And if there's a strong disagreement with the way the Traffic Council votes, as I've said before, we do have an appeals process for the next 20 days. An appeal could be filed, and then this item is frozen and transferred over to the Public Safety and Transportation Committee for the City Council to take a final vote. So that is the presentation I have for this item. I want to open it up for public comment now. And so let's begin with, let's begin with you, Karen, because you docketed the item. Karen Wenger, if you could unmute. And I know you live like right at the intersection, right? You can tell us your address.
Hi, Karen Wenger, 256 Ward Street, and that driveway that leads to that turn on red after stop is my driveway. So I'm very intimately familiar with this.
So this is your driveway right here? This one right here, is that your driveway?
Yeah,
like
that's
right
my driveway,
here?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I made this petition as a resident, obviously. I use this intersection both as a driver and as a pedestrian daily. I'm also a parent of 4 children who walk to Ward School using this intersection every day. And I also am the chair of the Safe Route to School Task Force for Newton. And so I filed this back in May, in June, after the crossing guard was involved in an accident. And it wasn't the first time he was involved in an accident there. And it was I just wanted to make sure that we do something to make a change here. he came back after a few weeks of recovery, and he's usually standing on the north side. So that's where the north side of the intersection at the corner of Ward and Waverly. Yeah, where your arrow
Like
is.
right here where the car is, probably.
Yeah. So I believe that in the current design, it's fairly dangerous, and I think the state database mentions 12 accidents at this intersection since the creation of the database, and that's only the accidents that were reported to police. I see many more. And fender benders that are not, where police is not involved. I also see daily near misses with pedestrians, especially on the way to school. People are rushing in the morning, and school parents are often guilty of that, but they try and sneak through. And this picture of the area view that you're showing is during the construction, but so you don't see the crosswalk markings and all that. But the crosswalk, so on the east side of Ward Street to Ward Street, to cross from south to north, is about 70 feet from the stop line. And I believe most drivers just look for incoming vehicles on their left side and don't pay attention to what's going on in front of them.
Are you talking about this crosswalk right
Yeah.
here? Okay.
It's pretty far. It's pretty distant, and it's the same on the north side. Drivers try to look for cars and don't necessarily think of pedestrians. You mentioned that on the north side the sight lines are good. I believe that pedestrians trying to cross Waverly are not easily spotted by drivers. So that's why I made this request for all corners to be not turn on red. I think you summarized.
I think you're talking about this crosswalk, right?
This you can see the cars, but seeing the pedestrians behind that fence on the right, it's not easy. So I think from a pedestrian safety.
So do you mean to say when you're turning there, it's not easy to see the pedestrians crossing?
That's right. The pedestrians that are on going towards Stewart, trying to cross Waverly. Yeah. So that's my take on it. The crossing guard has been injured a couple times, standing there with his high visibility vest and his adult awareness. So I'm thankful that no kid has been in an accident at this point, and I just would like to do something before someone gets injured there. And I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Let's move to Nathan Josephson.
Okay,
and we just need to know your address.
Hi. So I just want to build upon what Karen said. And that picture showing right turn on red, Ward Street onto Waverly is the biggest issue. That's where the biggest danger comes. And it's not necessarily that you can't see the pedestrians waiting to cross on the right. It's the fact that typically there's cars lined up to take a left. So nobody really uses Stewart Street. Let's just look at absolute numbers. So absolute numbers is everybody's coming from the east side of Ward there. The west side of Ward, and everybody wants to get onto Waverly or vice versa. So when cars are coming up here, typically there's a car trying to take a left-hand turn there. And then a car will sneak up on the right of them to take a right-hand turn onto Waverly, and they're completely looking left. When they're doing it. Sorry, if you go back to that. Yeah, that one right there. They're completely looking left when they're doing that. Seeing if there's oncoming traffic to take that right-hand turn. That's where everybody gets hit. And so that's when our crossing guard got hit. That's when I and my son have almost gotten hit a few times, is that exact point. And every time I wait a few beats and look at the car waiting to take a right, because typically they see the traffic stop coming from the left, and then they go. not realizing at that point that the crossing signal has already been beeping because they don't see it. It's not in their sight lines. On the same aspect, and it really is the function of this intersection. It's not a perfect T. The same function happens right in front of Karen's house when people are trying to take a right on Ward onto Ward. You would think that that's a straight, but it's not. It's a right. Again, they're looking to the left down Waverly to see if the oncoming traffic is turning there. And then because they're doing that, they don't see the pedestrians in the right-hand, the right-hand side of their field of vision. They're always looking left. And when you're talking about elementary school kids, they're 4 feet tall. And I'm almost getting hit, and I'm 6 feet. That's the issue that I have. Stewart Street is fine. Waverly coming into the from the right-hand side in that picture in the left. That's fine. It's really the Ward on Ward and the Ward on Waverly on the east side that's the biggest danger. So I'll stop talking.
Right, thank you. So I think even though on this slide, Mr. Oh, no, I don't remember your last name. Was it Josephson? I think you unmuted. Okay, so I was just going to ask on this slide, even though I wrote sight lines when turning right are not obstructed, I was really thinking about the vehicles coming from these two approaches, but I think that your point was that the sight lines are obstructed for the pedestrians that are crossing in this crosswalk. So I'm pretty sure that that's what you were just saying. Let's move on to Elizabeth Weinberg.
Hi, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this request. My name is Elizabeth Weinberg. I live on 52 Grant Ave, so just right around the corner from this intersection. I am a PTO co-president at Ward, and I have 2 small children who go there in 3rd grade and 1st grade. And I walk my children to and from school almost every day and have to be on high alert because I have almost been hit by cars while crossing the intersection at the right of way. There have been countless times that I have been crossing the right of way with my 2 children, and I have had cars turning right onto Ward and coming directly at us. And so everything that Nathan and Karen said, I agree with 100%. I actually witnessed Nathan almost get hit by a car not that long ago. And so it's dangerous. And it's not just as a pedestrian too, but I'm also driving through this intersection every single day. And it's true, turning right on red on Ward there's not enough sight lines. And as a driver, when I am on Ward Street and I am turning left onto Waverly, when I have a green light, I have to be on alert because cars that are turning right on red from Ward, turning right onto Waverly, are either not slowing down at all when they have a red light, maybe slowing down a little bit, and then turning right and cutting me off when I have the right of way. So it's unsafe. And I implore you to please take this into consideration and just make it safer for pedestrians and children and drivers. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Okay, the next one is Jim Daniel.
Hey, everybody. I live at the corner of Hobart and Ward, so just down the block. So that's the view you see is exactly what I see all the time. I have 2 comments. Comment number 1, I really feel for all the pedestrians who are trying to cross and the kids and the parents. The problem we've got is slightly more complicated than just a sign. Ward going to Waverly is referred to in our neighborhood and all of our neighbors as the Ward International Motor Speedway. People are trying to get to the exit 17 down Ward and they take a right on Waverly. We have a huge volume of people who are trying to do this. So even if we put the do not turn on red, I'm worried that we're going to start to have everyone going down Fellsmere and into the neighborhoods in just around the corner. And then of course the comments that were made about the turn from Ward around Ward at the light when it's changed in Grant, same thing. We have a lot of people coming from Grant. So number 1, I think this whole traffic circle is wrong, and having studied, you know, the current latest trends around traffic circles that are those slow speed traffic circles, and putting that in is the ideal situation. We've got a very difficult situation with lots of lights and signs and people who are not complying. Everyone's talking about the people who are almost got hit. We have so many people coming down down Ward, who are trying to get to Waverly, who are not obeying the speed limit or the turn signals. I've asked the police many times if they could actually stop people from speeding. I mean, we've got a more complicated issue here of people who are basically driving 50, 60 miles an hour down Ward and then screaming around the corner at Waverly all of the hours of the day. And the worst part is when kids are going to school over at Ward Public School. So my concern is that we might be able to like minutely change a few things. Obviously, the grant to Ward side, as you pointed out, David, rarely does it require a lot of people because it gets backed up very quickly. It gets backed up all the time from Grant onto Ward. And now we're going to have a backup onto Waverly, onto Ward, onto Waverly, and I'm worried that everyone's going to go onto Fellsmere. So if we're doing this, do you have the traffic study skills to figure out if we can actually change this to what many states are doing, which is eliminating these stoplights and the expensive infrastructure for that, and turn this into a slow speed traffic circle with clear markings and clear signals to stop people from getting hit? Because it's, as you said, it's not a normal traffic thing. It feels almost like an unusual traffic circle. No one's coming out of Stewart, as people said, but there's a lot of Ward to Waverly interaction that's over the top. They tried to extend the crosswalks this year to make it safer. I don't know what the other folks were talking about in terms of if that helped them or not. But it sounds terrible. But I just feel like right now, this is not going to even help us unless everyone starts going down, taking a right on Fellsmere and starts going through all the neighborhoods, gunning it through all the other back streets. So I'm sure it might help, but I just want to make sure we're going to have backups and people are going to start flooding the side streets. And I don't know how to stop that. So back to you.
Okay, thank you very much for that comment. I guess I would just say one thing, so Traffic Council, we're the group that is charged with specific changes in our traffic and parking regulations, like adding stop signs or parking restrictions. We don't have a budget. There's no budget. We don't have a budget for approving some new reconfiguration of the whole roadway. That's a much bigger project that, has definitely been talked about or thought about, but it's not something that we would be able to think about or vote on tonight, certainly. We just need to think about and vote on the specific items that were docketed, which are only the no turn on red signs at this point. But thank you for that comment. And we're going to go on to Marco.
Yes, good evening. My name is Marc Dumoulin. I'm the crossing guard on Ward and Waverly. If we can get again the picture, the view from Ward Street,
this one?
the westbound.
Westbound, okay. Let me go there.
Yes, if you have in the left lane, if you have 2 or 3 cars in the left lane.
This one, right?
Yes, if you have 2 or 3 cars in the left lane, as you explained, and cars going to Waverly, they do not see the people into the crosswalk. It's impossible. I'm in the middle of the intersection with my yellow jacket, my stop sign. The light is red, I still have people turning red behind me. It is also written into the traffic code in Massachusetts that on traffic lights, before turning right, you have to stop. Nobody stop. They all turn in on Waverly without to stop. When they do such turn to Waverly, they cannot see the people into the crosswalk from Waverly. It's very difficult. And
So you're
at
talking
once,
about, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but even in this picture, you don't see a crosswalk. You're talking about a crosswalk that's right there. You see
yes,
this crosswalk going across Ward Street, but you don't see a crosswalk right where people would be making that right-hand turn. Is that what you're saying?
when they make the right-hand turn, the one on the crosswalk from Waverly,
Mm-hmm.
it's impossible to see the pedestrians. At once, a lady who told me that she can turn on red. So do it. There are people in the crosswalk. And she didn't know that there were people in the crosswalk. She was surprised. Oh, that's what she told me. Once again, it's very dangerous for the kids. It's more than once that have to scream at the people to stop. And that's all. I just want to say that sign over there. It would be very interesting to see. I don't see why we have signs on Waverly and Ward coming from Center Street and not on Ward coming from westbound. And thank you very much.
Thank you. And just one question. So at
Yes.
your post, you cross the students in both crosswalks, across Waverly and across Ward Street. Is that right?
Across the kids
Mm-hmm.
everywhere in all directions.
Oh, okay. All right.
And just go in the middle of the intersection. It is also recommended for the crossing guard to go when there's an opening in between cars. Well, here it's like playing football. I jump in the middle because nobody stopped. All the people going to Waverly, they don't stop. Absolutely not. And I have to go in the middle because I have to cross kids. I've been hit once. I tell my wife every morning, maybe I will see you later. Maybe. It's an adventure, that's all. And thank you for listening.
So thank you for that comment, and thank you for helping our children. Councilor Laredo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kosi. So I'm really appreciative of the comments of all the neighbors here. I too live in this area. I've lived here for 30 plus years. I go through this intersection probably on a daily basis at one point or another, so I'm quite familiar with it. I think we can probably all agree on a few things. One, it's a very difficult intersection. We should all agree on that. Two, I see, and I don't think anyone would disagree, that the prohibition on right turn on red from Waverly onto Stewart ought to be codified. That is, if that's not codified, and the same with the inability to go right on red from Stewart onto Waverly. Those make perfect sense. The sight lines are poor. Good idea. They're there anyways. So here's the issue I'm struggling with, and I'm going to be candid about it. What I'm hearing is that people don't stop at all as they're going down Ward Street towards Waverly Ave. And not stopping at all is obviously not permitted. That's the whole purpose of a no turn on, a turn on red or a no turn on red is you're supposed to stop first. So what we have here is people not stopping at all. And what I'm concerned about on this intersection is that we actually, while it may be good on one sense to say no turn on red, are we creating behaviors where there's now an expectation that there's no turn on red, but people disobey the law routinely? And I think that's just a real expectation that we need to be cognizant of. I'm also cognizant of the fact that we might inadvertently divert traffic off of Waverly Ave and onto Fellsmere, because people will then be able to go right onto Fellsmere, left, I think it's Mandalay right there, and avoid the intersection entirely. That in turn, I think would be very bad, because those are clearly parts of the ability to walk to school, and we want to discourage that kind of behavior. Unfortunately, human beings act in a manner that gets them to their location as quickly as possible, whether we like it or not. And I do think that's a real possibility there, that we are going to see that kind of behavior. And I think that's something we'd actually want to, we would be very concerned about. So I'm struggling with this one. As far as the turn from Ward Street really up again to Ward, if I remember, Mr. Kosis, we dealt with this exact issue year and a half ago. I think this group voted not to put a no turn on red sign there. And I think the concerns are the same, which is while we may do something somewhat beneficial at this intersection, we have another intersection directly behind it that's going to be affected that I think is actually potentially much more dangerous, because I see cars on a regular basis as I'm driving in the other direction, backing up both onto Grant and onto Ward, essentially clogging the intersection, making it extraordinarily difficult for pedestrians to walk there safely. So I mean, I'm very sympathetic to the idea that we want to have safety here. That's paramount. But I have concerns, and I'll leave it to the wisdom of the traffic council, but I have concerns that we may be creating situations that actually may make this less safe. And I wouldn't want to see that. So I'll leave my comments at that. Thank you. And I do appreciate very much all the neighbors coming out, their concern. We all want this to be a safe intersection. Again, I'm concerned that the collateral effects might make this less safe, not more. And what we really need to do at the intersection is, if we're having people literally run the traffic light, then we need to have some enforcement there to prevent them from doing that, whether there's a no turn on red or not. And I'd ask the captain maybe to talk to the police chief about that, because that would be appropriate regardless of what this council does. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Laredo. Councilor Bixby.
Thank you. I just wanted to, having heard from, and I happen to know a number of ward families and being active in Safe Routes to School, and also just recognizing at this moment how much our crossing guards are really putting themselves out there and their lives so that we can, our kids can get to school safely. And the fact that, Mark, thank you so much for speaking up tonight, for everything that you do, and for sharing your story. I think that whatever we can do to make their jobs as safe as possible and make it so that kids can walk to school as safely as possible is really important here. I know my Ward 7 colleagues who know this intersection, this issue intimately, are here and express their, there are other pieces to the puzzle, but I just wanted to really reinforce the voices of the Ward families and our crossing guard who is there, and who also, we just have crossing guards throughout the city in a particularly tough year for traffic when it feels like drivers really are not paying attention. There's been more near misses, and we hope they stay near misses every day. Everything we can do to help make their jobs safe and easy feels really important right now. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Bixby. Councilor Grossman.
Thank you, Mr. Kosis. And I want to thank everybody who spoke this evening, particularly our crossing guard who crosses our kids every day. I also do live in this neighborhood. I've had 2 kids go through Ward School, one who's in 5th grade right now, and a 2.5-year-old who will get there in a few years. I wanted to echo the comments of my colleague, Councilor Laredo, and actually Mr. Daniel, who spoke before as well, because I think Mr. Daniel raised a really excellent point. When I first became a counselor, a thoughtful person about these issues raised to me this idea of a circle, and I started inquiring about it. I mean, for one thing, it's unclear whether there actually is enough physical space there, even if we had the resources and ability to build a circle, for that to be reality. But I think the reality of our budget situation and the amount of money we have to deploy on these things, that's not something that we're likely to see certainly in any short or medium term period of time. But I think that he hit on the problem that then Councillor Laredo lifted up, which is that we have what I think could be an unintended consequences situation if we further back up the traffic at these intersections. I think it was accurately identified that we do get backups in the direction of the Grant Ave part of the intersection. Forgive me, I'm terrible at using easterly and westerly approaches and describing that. So I'm just going to use landmarks. And lately, I have also noticed an increasing backup from the opposite approach when one is onward. I guess that was the westbound approach to take a right on Waverly. That traffic signal, for some reason, I don't know if the timing of it was adjusted at all recently, but the green light there is extremely brief. And the backing up there has gotten more significant. And in my observation, when those things occur, driver behavior deteriorates rather than improves. And I'm concerned that not only could that happen at this intersection, but that if drivers start no longer or diverting away from this intersection, we're diverting them to other places where we don't have a crossing guard. And I think, I don't want to assume, but I think there's probably agreement that the real crux of the time of day that we're talking about is when the kids are going to school and from school. So I'm not confident that making these changes would address the issues that our neighbors who have participated tonight so eloquently raised. And for that reason, I'm struggling with this request as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Grossman. Jeannie Fairley, our ADA coordinator. And you need to unmute, Jeannie. You got it.
Got it. Thank you. I have over the last almost 10 years of asking for no turn on red in some very, very busy intersections. And this one, I do know, I've been in conversations about putting in a rotary here. It's skewed. I even know no turn on red, skewed or otherwise, just straight, rectangle intersections. It really does work. It's not a false assumption. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten the walk light to walk and have to look to my left to see if someone's coming around from the right to cut me off, to hit me. I feel so unbelievably upset about the crossing guard that testified today. I am so glad that you finally, and I'm going to ask for the citation, David, for the, I think was that from the federal highway, for the bikes and pedestrians that is recommended, no turn on red. I know that whether it's an all stop, which I know this is not, it's a concurrent, that you really need to think about the pedestrians, especially the children, the people with disabilities, which is really my bailiwick. But I have begged for no turn on red in many locations, and they've worked quite well. I know there's a lot going on. When I used to drive, I knew this shortcut. My kids know it, from Grant to Ward to Waverly. Woohoo! We're on, the turnpike going east or west. So I please, I'm begging you to really consider the guidance you quoted, David, and the no turn on red. When you were giving your presentation, I was thinking sightlines for who, and sightlines for who do you see in the crosswalk. Yes, it's against the law to hit someone in the crosswalk, especially a blind person like myself. So I would really like to see this intersection to be as safe as possible, with many more things like targeted enforcement also by the police. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeannie. Councillor Downs.
Hi, thanks. I'm really appalled by the testimony from the neighbors that I'm hearing, and I couldn't agree more with our ADA coordinator. And the research is solid about no turn on red being safer. I also think it's our job as traffic council not to worry about future traffic calming that might be required in other parts, if indeed traffic does behave like water rather than like gas and overflows into other neighborhoods. Very often we find that traffic actually evaporates when you make it just slightly more difficult to do the dangerous behavior. I think enforcement is warranted here, but we know, and I'm sure the captain will back me up on that, you can enforce and enforce and enforce, but you can't be there all the time, and people will do what they're going to do, and what has become the norm, which is fairly unsafe. I'm appalled that our crossing guards are being hit at this intersection. We won't have a perfect solution. We don't have it in front of us. We can't vote on things that we don't have a budget for in traffic council. Traffic council focuses on the item before us and on what is safest for of the options that are put in front of us. And in this case, I think it's pretty clear, and the research backs us up, that an additional no turn on red will slightly help this situation. And I encourage the city to have another look at whether we can do something that will be even safer here, such as a roundabout. Because I just can't imagine letting this situation just fester and not doing anything here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Downs. Okay, Elizabeth Weinberg, another comment?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm really struggling to hear some of this recent pushback against having these no turn right on red signs, because this is clearly a pedestrian safety issue. And this will solve this problem, or at least help to fix it. And if there ends up being more traffic piling up, cars can wait. People can wait so that children can safely cross the street. And there can be other ways to fix any possible future problems, but I think we should take baby steps, and we should take this one step at a time, and this should be the first step. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jeannie, you still have your hand up. Did you mean to put it down? I think you may have. Are there any last comments from the public before we close the public comment period? This is your last chance to make a comment. Okay, seeing none, I want to thank all of you for your comments. We're going to close the public comment period and bring the discussion to the members of Traffic Council and the city councilors that are on the call. I think that there's a lot to think about here. We've heard a lot of good comments. There's no perfect answer that will satisfy everybody. And so let's see what other members of Traffic Council have to say. Mitch?
Thank you, David. Yeah, I just wanted to make two comments. One is, I think it was discussed that we had taken this issue up actually in June, I believe, of last year. So it's, I think it's less than a year. Maybe it was June of the prior year. But my recollection was this was an item that at that time, David, that you had docketed It was not docketed by a neighbor. And in fact, my recollection was neighbors didn't show up. And if perhaps there were one, perhaps two, but I don't remember any neighbors showing up. So it was a different sequence. We didn't really have a lot of testimony from what was really happening in the area. To me, the conversation that has come up in the probably last 45 minutes is really this question about safety, children, residents in the area versus traffic, people coming through the area, people being able to speed to the turnpike, people perhaps if they can't speed to the turnpike, they're going to use side streets like Fellsmere or some other. And I think, you know, I view my job on this body as favoring the citizens, favoring the residents, favoring children. So it seems to me that it's a clear situation. I'll make two quick points. One is, it seems to me that you need, do not make right turn signs at all of the locations. Now, maybe the one that was referenced, making a right from Ward onto what's the street? I forgot it. Onto
Stewart.
I'm sorry, I went to Waverly. Maybe
Mhm.
that right turn perhaps would, you know, divert traffic into that neighborhood. But it seems to me that if you don't have signs at each of these corners, you basically tell cars and people coming through that, you know, one corner has it, maybe two corners have it, two corners don't, one corner doesn't have it, three corners do. It's a mixed message. And I think part of the problem is this particular right turn on red at this person's driveway has so many different problems. We heard from the crossing guard very eloquently that it was a big safety issue and he was in peril going between cars. We heard from people trying to cross and those cars coming through not stopping. Sure, it's an enforcement issue, but they're not stopping because they know at some point they can zip through. So and I think, you know, the comment that the counselor made about, you know, people or somebody, maybe actually Elizabeth Weinberg, she actually to me made the best comments. And I think if you listen to her comments or think about it, those are the comments that we should act on. We should act on for the kids, we should act on for the neighbors, and we should not act on for people zipping through to the area going to the turnpike. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Mitch. Adrian.
I do. I'd just like to touch on a few points regarding the signal and the timing. So two of the big concerns I heard were cut through traffic, particularly for Waverly southbound, and them cutting through local roads, and also the potential backup on Ward going past Grant and making that intersection more dangerous. But I'd like to just say that I think the city can definitely look into retaking traffic counts up to date to completely retime that signal according to current traffic volumes in all directions. So the traffic simulations that we work on do go on if there are no turns on reds or if there aren't no turns on reds. We would be happy to run a new one with updated traffic volumes if this item were to pass. And our observations show that that's a challenge that we're seeing. That's a minor cost, and we'd be able to retime the signal accordingly. I think that would largely discourage people seeking alternate routes if they're sure that they can get through the intersection in a reasonable amount of time. I think it would also obviously mitigate the backup that you would see from Ward past Grant, or hopefully not past Grant. Thank you.
Thank you. So, so Adrian, we're talking about if this does get approved by Traffic Council and not appealed, and the no right turns go in at all four intersections, various unintended consequences, right? If like different things that the city could do at that point, retime the signal is what you were just talking about. put in the do not block the box. What else? There's, what other things could be done? I'm just trying to think of, we could take the no turn on red signs out if we find that it's like intolerable situation occurs, right? It's just a sign that would be removed if we find that it's worse than than what we have now. Or a bigger project that needs to wind through and find funding and design and everything.
Yep.
Right?
I'd also just like to say that I could confirm that a traffic circle would not fit within this intersection. There are minimum requirements, and the north west corner is just too tight without property impacts to be able to fit even the minimum size traffic circle, unfortunately.
Okay. And I'll just underscore that this is one of the items that we have, we've heard different points of view. We do have the appeals process, right? So that, actually last year I think we heard about 50 or 60 items at Traffic Council. We didn't have any appeals. Usually we don't have any appeals or maybe one appeal to our vote, but it always is an option if someone feels strongly that Traffic Council votes in the wrong way. An appeal could be filed by anybody. The item is then taken out of Traffic Council jurisdiction, brought to Public Safety and Transportation Committee, and the full City Council does have the final say in this and every item at Traffic Council. So that's just a reminder. So Margot.
I know this isn't within the Traffic Council's purview, but it's just thinking if there's a way for this to not do something that Traffic Council can enact or wait to in the medium long term to do a full reconstruction. It seems like the problem, or one of the contributing problems here, is that there's just a lot of excess pavement that, regardless of what the signage is, will encourage drivers to go too fast. So it might be a good opportunity to look at some temporary treatments like barricades or flex posts to have the intersection feel more constrained, but do so in a cost-effective manner.
Thank you. Thank you for that great suggestion, Margot. Councilor Laredo.
Thank you, Chair Kosis. I just want to be really clear that if the Traffic Council votes to adopt this, that's absolutely fine with me. That's why we have Traffic Council. I don't have any intent of appealing this whatsoever. I do think, and I'm pleased to hear Mr. Ayala talking about adjusting the timing of the traffic lights. I think that's very important because I am concerned about the backup on Grant and Ward, and I drive there a lot. I don't have quite the same confidence you do that you're going to be able to alleviate that sufficiently during busy hours. The traffic goes probably halfway down to Grant towards Commonwealth Avenue. It also extends onto Ward. Again, going through that intersection on foot or driving virtually every day, I'm just concerned that we're creating a hazard there. So anything we can do to alleviate that hazard, whether it's something that instructs people not to block the box, not to be in the crosswalk when they're on Grant, waiting to make a right onto Waverly, on a Ward, I think that'll be very helpful. And I think I speak for all three ward councilors that we appreciate the neighbors coming out. This is what Traffic Council is supposed to do, and we're just trying to make this as safe as possible for everybody. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Laredo. Anything else? Any other comments from anyone? All right, would anyone like to make a motion? We have this slide.
I'd like to make the motion, yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, so Mitch, what motion would you like to make?
You advise me, but I would like to make the motion that all of the corners have no turn on red, although you indicated that the Stewart Street, I believe, doesn't need that. So I guess the other intersections are the recommendation.
So your motion is to approve a no turn on red at these 3 locations shown on this slide on page 56. Waverly onto Stewart, Ward onto Waverly, and Ward continuing onto Ward. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. So we have a motion made by Mitch this would be for TPR 970, to add 3 new no turn on red regulations into the TPR. In practice, in the field, we would be adding 2 new signs because we already have the sign on Waverly Avenue. So we would be adding 2 new no turn on red signs, Ward Street onto Waverly and Ward Street continuing eastbound onto Ward Street. Any last comments before we vote? Does everyone understand what we're voting on? Anyone else want to make any last comments? Okay. So I think, Danielle, you can call the roll.
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
and Captain Devine.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 5-0, TPR 970.
Okay, so that was approved. We just need to wait 20 days until February 19th. We're not removing the sign on Waverly, and we're not going to be adding any of the 2 other signs until we are ensured that there's no appeal that's filed. So thank you all very much for all your comments on this item, and we're going to move on to the next item of the evening. Okay, so the next item is TC 425, David Kosis, Traffic Council Chair, requesting to update the TPR to reflect changes made to the parking area on Chestnut Street, east of Oak Street. And I'll also open the last item, which is TC 525, David Kosis, Traffic Council Chair, requesting to add the no turn on red restrictions at the intersection of Chestnut Street and Oak Street in all directions. So for TC 425, this is the location. This is the parking area on Chestnut Street. The construction's now completed. The Petty Square has been improved. We have new parking in this vicinity. So we need to update our traffic and parking regulations to match the restrictions that we want in this area. So as you're traveling on Chestnut, east of Oak Street, first we have these 2 marked short-term spaces. And then after that, we have our 2 new accessible spaces and access aisle in between. And then we have 2 EV spaces, 2 charging spaces, which are new. The recommendation for these charging spaces is similar. It's exactly the same as what we have in the Pearl Street lot, is to not meter it, but to put a time limit so that you could park there and charge for 3 hours, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., except Sundays and holidays. You can charge, all night. You can charge all day on Sunday. It's just during the time period, Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., you can only be there for 3 hours. And then after the chargers, the recommendation is to add 6 short-term parking meters. Short-term, this whole area was metered before the construction. So the meters, the poles are still there. We'll just be putting the meter heads back and remeasuring it. So we're recommending 6 short-term spaces, and then all the rest in this row would be the long-term spaces. So $5 a day from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., 50 cents an hour, like every long-term meter in the city. So that would be 17 long-term spaces. And then we have this area at the end that was paved several years ago, and metered several years ago, and then sort of closed off and blocked off this area for other uses. So the recommendation is for now, just keep that blocked off how it is now. Gives us flexibility in the future if needed. So here is the recommendation. Here's the language. The language to be able to enact everything that I just said is shown on the next couple slides, removing all of the current language and measurements within that area of Chestnut Street and adding back a lot of what's already there for much of Chestnut Street in other parts of the city. And then, I guess what I'm highlighting in green are the specific changes for this item, to have a prohibited zone for a couple feet, no parking, and then the 15-minute limit, that's the short-term spaces, those 2 short-term spaces. So a 15-minute limit from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then the accessible spaces, those 2 spaces, and then the electric vehicle spaces, and then the short-term meters, and then the long-term meters. That's all the language measured out in terms of feet from Oak Street. And then sort of cleaning up the measurements for the accessible spaces. So that's all that we would be needing to vote on to create the zone the parking zone that we had just gone over. So I guess I'll stop there and open it up for public comment.
David, just for our reference, could you put the map back up so we can see? Because the feet don't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we're looking at
So this is
just
the map.
that area.
It's just
We
this
have
area.
how many 15-minute spaces at the
2
beginning?
15. Yeah, sorry,
Okay.
that was too measurement-y, right? So
Yeah.
we're just talking about 2 short-term spaces, free.
This is all on the south
unmetered,
side.
all on the
right?
south side. We're not doing
Yeah.
anything changing anything on the north side. So
2 accessible.
2 free short-term spaces, 15-minute, very short term. Then 2 accessible spaces, then 2 EV charging spaces with a 3-hour limit, then 6 short-term meter spaces, then 17 long-term meter spaces, and then this blocked off area at the end.
Okay, sorry, 6 other meter spaces.
6 short-term meters. So
That's
75
15
cents an
minute.
hour. No, that would be what did I write? Did I write 3 hours? So it would be 3-hour limit.
3
Parking
hours.
meters.
Okay.
Okay. And then
Okay.
17 all day 10-hour meters.
Okay. At 50 cents.
Right.
All right, that's just to be clear, if you could put the map back up, and we don't have any meters on the other side of the street, and we're not thinking about adding those at this
No,
point?
we're only putting the meters back where they were before the construction.
Okay.
These are not new meters. They're just slightly in different places.
Right. And we don't have any ordinance that allows us to enforce the EV spaces if someone is not charging and decides to park for free. We don't have anything we can do about that yet, right?
Well, the only thing that we could do is have a 3-hour limit. And then if there's a vehicle parking there, even if they're not charging, or if they are charging, if they're longer than 3 hours, then they can be given a ticket.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear
If
on
we
that
didn't
for those
have
who
the
are
3
listening.
Yeah, if we did not have a 3-hour limit, then a vehicle would be able to park in the EV spaces without paying the charger or there's no meters there all day long. Right?
Yeah. Right. And we don't really, we didn't put them there for that reason.
Right.
Right. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yep. Other comments?
I don't know if
Who's,
I need to raise my hand or if I can just go ahead and make
oh,
it.
is this Councilor Getz? Councilor Getz, yes.
Correct. Yeah. So, one thought that I'm not seeing anybody here from the Upper Falls Area Council. Were they noticed of these changes? are these proposed parking? I'm specifically concerned about their input, you know, just in terms of the cafe there, Little Luke's. And I just
So
want
Little Luke's was, they were
notified.
sent a notice, and the building right there, the abutters were notified.
Okay,
The
I'm
abutters
just,
were
you know, I'm
notified.
not seeing anybody from the area council here
Mhm.
tonight, you know, just in terms of being able to, you know, be representational or comment on this, because I think they have a better sense of, you know, what the parking need is in this area. And I'm new to traffic council. I don't know, you know, in terms of those all day parking meters. You know, I would think the 3 hour would be appropriate, you know, in terms of what's coming in the splash park. So I don't know, you know, going forward, whether or not you amend the parking so that then it fulfills the short term or the, you know, people coming to the splash park. You know, it's better suited than someone being parked there and blocking you know, someone who's visiting the splash park to be able to park there. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's
Yeah,
hard
and I
to-
think, you know, I think I would say that what we are proposing here is almost the same that was there before, right? So what was there before was a combination of two free short-term, very short-term spaces, and then I don't remember if there were any accessible spaces, but that's required. There were not any EV spaces; those are new. But the most of this area was long-term meters and a few short-term meters before, and we definitely heard from the neighborhood about this blocked off area
Correct.
that
Yep.
that used to be metered, and there was a strong push to take the meters out and close off the space to parking. So I don't think that there's very much change from what was there before the construction began. Like I said, we do have the flexibility once the splash park does go in to make changes, you know, if they're needed. We could change this blocked off area. We could take some of the long-term meters and make them short-term, although, you know, long-term meters are cheaper, right? They're only 50 cents an hour versus 75 cents an hour for the short-term meters. And people could park in the long-term meters and go to the splash park. You don't have to park there all day, right? So the reason that we wanted mostly long-term meters is because we think that there are more all-day parkers in this area from the businesses nearby.
Okay, but they are not required to provide their parking for their, you know, in terms of their own lots and their own site. I'm just more concerned about it not, you know, in a year or 2 years or whenever the, you know, the Northlands Splash Park comes online, that in fact the need will shift, you know, and I think of it as it would be much better to keep them as 3 hour. You know, this is where I would depend on the area council in terms of what's actually happening in these parking stalls now. I just don't know.
Yeah, and that's something that I would be concerned about too, because I think that the splash park could be very popular. And, you know, there's some parking on the Northland side. This is also very close parking. We could convert this blocked off area into parking if we want to. And it's not hard at all to change a meter from long-term to short-term. The meter itself is already there. All that would have to happen is, you know, if we find that there's a need or that we want to change something, someone would docket an item for traffic council, and we would just vote to change the time and keep the meter exactly where it is. It's very easy to do. We do that all the time, actually. In fact, I think the last meeting, we changed the whole Langley lot from 2 hours to 3 hours in one meeting, and very quickly after it was docketed.
Okay. And if this is part of a larger conversation, because you know, Northland's coming back to amend their special permit. And I was spending some time earlier just looking at the conditions that were in the board order. And it actually is suggesting that they're prohibited from using offsite locations for parking for any uses within the site. So, you know, in effect, I'm sort of, you know, saying to you right now that they are going to have to fulfill the parking for the splash park on site. So this is going to be another piece of the conversation that's coming. So, you know, I just want to make sure that, you know, we've got the parking appropriately set, you know, for the use in the area. And that's why I defer to the area council, because this is not one that I'm watching, you know, I just don't know. So I'm a little concerned that this is premature, you know, in terms of not really fulfilling the needs in the area. I just don't know.
If I may, this is Councilor Downs. Also from Ward 5, and I'm down in this area pretty regularly. These spaces are currently free, Councilor Getz, and available, and they're mostly empty most of the time. So for the current need, and understand that traffic council's backlog is at most a couple of months. For the current need, there is plenty of space for everybody who wants to use these spaces. Once we put a price on the spaces, I suspect they'll empty out pretty fast and people will park somewhere where it's cheaper or free. So that's often the expectation. But in my experience of traffic council, particularly lately under Chair Kozis, they move very quickly, very nimbly, and they move with data. And so if we have data that shows that we're seeing larger demand here, we'll raise the price or shorten the time on these spaces so that we can, so the demand can be met there. Northland will have their own restrictions. My recollection is that all use is on site, but the splash park is on us. It's ours once they finish it, and so it wouldn't count as a Northland. Something that Northland would have to provide parking for, in my understanding. You'd want to check that with law.
Yeah, I'm going to have to, because
Yeah,
the way it's written is the way I understand it. You know,
yeah, no, and that I think the understanding, I was there for all of those negotiations. It was that the Northland uses would be Northland's responsibility. The splash park, however, is a public amenity run by our Parks and Rec department that we will own and have to maintain. So it will be, you know, I think it looked as a public amenity, not as a Northland amenity, even though they're paying for it.
Yeah.
But I have no doubt that if we have a parking problem down there, the traffic council will be back in force with a parking solution. That's what we do.
Yeah. And the other piece of this is that I want the parking to be, you know, fulfilling the need in the area, because I definitely do not want, you know, people satelliting and going further into the neighborhoods in that area. Because that's quite, you know, there's a lot of curvy roads and there's a lot of small, you know, historic kind of, you know, if you will find quickly that, you know, the parking just abutting is pretty dangerous, you know, in the sense of curvy roads and grade. So you want people to be using the parking. They provided parking, and you don't want to be pushing people into the neighborhoods in this area.
Agreed. And we've been keeping a pretty close eye on that in traffic council, and generally it's you know, again, it's the kind of thing we do. And if there's any need, you know, we're here. That's what traffic council does.
Yeah.
And again, really, we're not changing much from what was there before. There were meters there before. You know, we had the construction. We have the beautiful new Petty Square is now done. We're basically just pretty much putting back what was there before with a few changes, the new EV spaces. Actually, the official regulations on the books still included this area as metered parking, which it's not. So we're taking this opportunity to not have this officially noted in the books as metered parking, since it was decided to take the meters out. But pretty much what was there before is what's being voted on.
Yep, I got it.
Okay,
And while we always try to anticipate future needs, we really have to respond to the needs that the data shows are there rather than something that we're worried about in the future. That's why we try to be nimble.
Yeah, I'm just mostly concerned about, I'd love to see the data.
any other comments? Okay, would anyone like to make a motion on this item?
I'll move approval.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councillor Downs. This would be TPR 971 to approve all the changes we went over by voting to approve the TPR language on pages 64, 65, 66, 67. Any last comments?
Yeah, I also want to thank the chair of Traffic Council in putting this together, for not putting in meters in that final little spot that I know the neighborhood really wants to preserve as a possible public space and car-free space. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Councillor Downs. Okay, I think we're ready to vote. Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Captain Devine.
Aye.
It's approved 5-0, TPR 971.
All right, and then the last item, I already opened the item, so I'll just quickly, this is just at the intersection itself. You notice on this slide, we already have in all directions the no turn on red signs. And even though they're in the field, they're not in our official traffic and parking regulations. So we're just catching up with our official regulations to match what was approved by City Council as part of the project itself. So I will make the motion to approve the language of TPR 972 to add the no turn on red signs at Chestnut and Oak in all approaches. Are there any comments on this item?
Yeah, so I should, direct my comment to Councillor Downs. What did the city council approve and when did they approve it? In terms of the installation of the no turn on red signage. When did that happen?
I'm not sure. I don't remember that happening. So that is a good question for a chair.
I mean, as far as I
Penny
know,
Square project went to City Council, I think in 2020 or 2021. It's part of a much larger project funded by MassWorks grant. The entire project, including all the signage and pavement markings plans, were presented to the entire City Council.
Well,
so I think all we're saying was
yeah.
like on one of those plans that went to City Council, there was probably a little note that said no turn on red.
Yeah. And it would have been approved by public facilities, not by public safety and transportation. That's where these things go. That's one reason I'm advocating that we change a rule, is that, it really is, when it comes to transportation, it really should be public safety and transportation that looks at this. So I'm not sure what the reasons were for putting in a no turn on red, outside of what we heard earlier about how it generally is safer to have no turn on red rather than a free right.
Yeah, because I this is me, in terms of being on the city council.
Exactly.
So I would love to, see that documentation, because I think that people were, you got that email earlier today, Councillor Downs, that was surprised to see this. So,
yeah.
I do think that it would be good to verify it, and to, be able to call back and look at those documents, because this is almost 4 years post that approval.
There's a project website on our city website that has all documents going back to the inception of the project, so that it can be referenced there.
Okay, so
I just wanted to clarify that the the no turn on red is also being used in combination with the raised intersection there.
Okay.
The entire big goal of this project was traffic calming, and to combine the raised approaches with the no turn on red is the best solution for traffic calming as well as pedestrian safety here.
Right. But driving through that intersection, I don't feel like the intersection is raised in any way. There's changes in topography or surface, but there's
It's
no
raised 6
shift.
inches in all approaches.
Say it again.
It's raised about 6 inches in all approaches.
So Adrian, this
Yeah.
little
Grade?
triangle,
Yeah.
doesn't that indicate that this is where the rise happens, right?
Yeah.
Coming up into the intersection. I think
Okay.
this whole thing, like the whole project was about safety and about making it more complete street. You have the bike markings, you have the really nice crosswalks, you have the EV chargers. You know, the crosswalks are now a little bit offset that when you're turning, you know, someone might be, you can even see in this slide, it might be a little hard to see if there's a pedestrian right over there, you know. So I think it's part of the whole thought of the design.
Right, right. All right. So if I get in touch with you, Mr. Ayala, you would be able to send me the you know, the documentation, you know, so that then I can send this to
Yeah,
this.
I can help out with whatever, but it's also
Right.
on the
That'd be
project
great.
website.
And you can actually, I don't know that it's 6 inches, but you can see the shift, you know, in terms of just the image right here, where it's the 4 inches of the granite, you know, in terms of, you know, the change in grade right there.
Yes.
If you're riding through the intersection, you don't feel any shift in the vehicle. You know, maybe on a bike you would, but not driving through the intersection. It doesn't feel like you're, you know, going up on a raised table at all.
But I think the other thing I would add to what Councilor Downs said was that it may not be raised in terms of the topography. I don't know if that's true, but the pavement material cues people to know that you're in the middle of an intersection or whatever. And I think that's part of the theory, I think, of no turn on red.
So I will say our typical curb height, as you can see on the right-hand side of the photo, our typical
Right.
curb height is 6 inches. As you can see, it elevates up from the bottom of that curb to the top
Right.
of that curb. The entire middle portion of the intersection is 6 inches above all approaches. So that's what we mean by raised.
Okay.
This actually, if I remember the process right, went through a lot of neighborhood vetting. I'm not going to say that everybody was 100% happy about it. That's not the way it works in Newton with any of our street changes. But I think in general, it looks pretty good and it's working pretty well. If this is part of the design, I think I didn't watch the design process closely enough to note every single sign. But if this is part of the design and this is what our safety experts are saying we should do, I say let's try it. Frankly, if it lowers the amount of traffic that tries to go through on Chestnut and Oak to get to Needham Street and circumvent the highway, that might be a really good thing for all of the surrounding streets, because there's really, because of the way that the railroad goes through there are no good alternates besides that and using Needham Street. We can always come back and remove this if we see that it's becoming a larger problem.
Yeah, well, that was part of the comment today, that people are queuing, you know, that they're not able to make that right turn, you know, in terms of the comment that we received today. So that they're
Right.
backing up, and they're backing up past the Biltmore, you know, at specific times of day.
Yeah, and I expect that will happen until people start to get a sense of the intersection. Again, you want to give things a little bit of time so that people can get used to them, make changes in their schedules, and then they will probably, you know, either a lot more time or decide to take a different route if they are impatient. And for a lot of Newton streets, that would be a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm gonna, you know, we need to pay attention to this. Just because
Absolutely.
that, you know, there will be people that will be responding to this amount of no turn on red at all four corners. Because definitely the one that's Chestnut turning onto Oak is problematic during specific times of day.
Well, people will be making changes to their schedules and their, how they route themselves through Newton, and that might not be a bad thing.
Well,
And
it
the
is a-
signs are already posted. They're already there. So if we don't approve them, we would need to take them down.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was the comment that we received earlier today,
Mhm.
that they had seen the item, on tonight's agenda. And they didn't understand and so I will be reaching out to you, Mr. Ayala, just to get that content, because there was a little confusion about that.
It's all publicly available on the city website as well, on the Petty Square project page.
Okay.
Everything's there.
Okay.
Okay. So did I make a motion already, or I'll make a motion to approve 972 to make these no turn on red signs official in TPR? Any last comments? Okay, so Danielle, can you call the roll on this one?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
and Captain Devine.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 5-0 TPR 972.
All right, so thank you all. That concludes our meeting for tonight. Our next traffic council meeting is scheduled for February 27th. So we'll see you all at that meeting.
I
Thank
just
you all again.
I just wanted to thank Margot and Adrian for their comments on the Waverly. I thought they were very good comments, and I think Margot's comments about some cones or things to direct traffic, I think that's a great idea, and that might be at least a short-term way of dealing with that, in addition to no turn on red. Anyway, thank you.
I agree. Thank you.
All right, good night, everybody.
Good night.